I think it's interesting how in life there's like monkey wrenches that are thrown at you, and you have a decision to make when you receive that dart or that monkey wrench, and you decide what path you're going to go on. And some people refer to it as, being thrown lemons and they turn it into lemonade. A time in my life where I experienced something of that magnitude was, I would say, over the last 2 to 3 years. It literally felt like a rug was pulled from up under me. And the best way to describe it was, what once was everything that was important to me, everything that existed, everything that mattered within a matter of years changed, went away, or just was completely disrupted in some way. The interesting thing from that is, I did experience a time where I was just shattered. I was so broken. And, when my parents decided to split after almost 30 years, I think I took it really hard because at that time in my life, I was fighting hard for my marriage. And the reality of possibly having something that was that valuable and losing it, the reality just struck me a lot harder then, because I'm like, my parents were married for almost 30 years. That was all I knew. I didn't know how to celebrate a holiday without both of my parents, or even having to think about how do you include someone else that they may be dating into something that's, so important to your family. So that happened. And a lot of the events that surrounded that happening, I think, were more traumatic than the actual separation or divorce. My relationship with my parents changed significantly. My relationship with my mom changed significantly, and I would say almost dissipated. At that time, I was still married, and I took a lot of that energy that I used to put into my family, like my parents and my siblings. I put that into my marriage because I was like, I was so afraid of losing it. And almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, within less than a year, I ended up losing my marriage. And so dealing with my parents' separation and divorce was difficult. And then dealing with my own divorce, and the loss of the family that I had created. I was a step parent. It was very challenging, but I made a choice. I made a choice that I could be a victim or I could be a victor. And I didn't want to be a victim. I didn't want to be a victim to any of the circumstances that was surrounding my life at that time. I realized that I was 2 years away from turning 30, so something had to change quickly and drastically. And so I found one of my old journals that had stated that I was trying to move to Atlanta 10 years prior to that date. 10 years, almost to the exact time and date. I had my plans written out. I had the amount of money I need to save, the area I wanted to move to, the jobs that I applied for. And it was interesting because the place that I ended up moving to when I finally did make it 2 years ago was in the same area that I was looking for 10 years prior. So I decided to move to Atlanta and start my life over by myself and explore my opportunities. And I would tell you that by far that has been the best decision I have ever made.
When life threw me lemons, I would have to say the worst time was in college. I got a tumor in my chest. My parents were getting divorced after 26 years. And my grandfather died, all in the same year. So, first, my grandfather is just like a father to me. So, when he died, it was like the end of the world for me. When my parents were getting divorced, it wasn't more so that I was having a tough time. It was more like my little brother. And He's my everything. So the fact that he had to be in the house and they were going back and forth and bickering, that is really what hurt my heart. Um, my tumor, it was benign, thank God, and we actually had surgery to get it out, so no worries there. But I would have to say the way I overcame it was I just like took a break from everything. I took a break from school, I took a break from working, and I just really worked on getting myself back together. Yeah, it put me behind, but I look at school as though it doesn't matter how long it takes you to finish as long as you get it done. And I finished with a GPA over 3.0. So I must say, well done to anyone who makes it through school and has had tough times in their life. Um, it's really just a part of living, going through tough situations. It's not how you are when you're down, it's what happens and what you do to get back up. So, if I can make it, so can anyone else.
Ugh. I got a big piece of news when I was 6 weeks fresh out of having a baby. And I went to the doctor. We get the pap smears like right after. You get the pap smears right after you have your baby. When you do your 6 weeks. And I did the pap smear, and they were like, well, we're gonna call you back with the results. And then I found out that I have cancer. And, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how I felt about it. It's like, it just kind of hit me in my face. And I got it because I had Jonah, and Jonah, after I had him, your cells in your body, they live and they go through their course, they die and they deteriorate. Well, if your cells don't deteriorate, then they then infect all of your healthy cells. And that's what happened. And so I got through it by just acting like it didn't happen. I didn't tell anybody for a while after I found out. And then it started to be noticeable. Like, I was 170 pounds. I now weigh 134. And I guess I got through it a little bit, I guess. Not really. And then I finally told, my mama, my daddy, I told everyone. And you could just tell that everybody was just so hurt from it. So I just laughed. Like, that's the only way I can do it, is if I just laugh through it and just act like it doesn't happen. Because, like, I have to think like I have chemo to go through. I had to get my hair cut because, like, here it's cut off, but it was way longer than this. And I had to, like, get it cut off in layers because I tried so hard to hide the fact that I have it, because I don't like for people to feel sorry or to feel bad or anything like that. And, like, my best friends knew, but they only knew to a certain extent. And then I think, like, it got really, really difficult for me when I started the coughing up the blood phase, because one day I coughed up blood in front of Jonah, and he just watched, and he didn't know what to do. And so I just remember him, like, giving me towels and everything, and he was trying to clean me up. And he's like, Mama, I be your doctor, you know? And it's like, as much as I hate chemo and I hate radiation, I have to do it because if I leave, he doesn't have anybody. So it's like, what do I do if I have to leave him? Like, what does he do, you know? So I guess I just gotta keep pushing and keep pushing because I can't leave him by himself.
My name is Lacey. I'm 25. I'm going to discuss a difficult time in my life. It would definitely have to be when I found out that I could no longer attend the college I was attending because I couldn't pass a math class. And it's really crazy because honestly, my family doesn't even know this. So, and they probably won't ever watch this video log. So, this is honestly something that I'm kind of sharing. I don't even know if some of my college friends knew this, but I couldn't pass the math class. Math has been a dyslexia for me for a really long time, and it's always been a struggle. And it was always the thing that beat me down and kind of made me feel like it was going to conquer my life because I couldn't conquer it. You know what I mean? So, especially when you're in school and you have hopes of being in higher education, you're like, math is going to get harder. It ain't going to get easier. And especially because I was in school for psychology, I was going to be having to deal with a whole lot of math. So, that was a fear of mine going into college, and it was hard for me to exit high school. You have to take an exit exam. You have to pass the English and the math in order to exit out of, being a senior in California and progressing on to higher education. The English, I passed that with flying stars the first time. The math took me literally up until the last point in time I could even take it. The last chance I even had, my senior year, that was the last time I could even take it, and I passed it. I failed, and I finally passed it. I was taking tutoring classes, studying everything. It's just always been such an issue for me. So when it happened to me when I was in college, it was mortifying. I graduated from high school. I got accepted into college, which no one ever really thought would happen because the way I was so nonchalant. I got good grades, but I definitely could have applied myself more, I'm sure. So, because first I get an appeal to stay at the college, then it happens again, and I fail, and I try to get another appeal to stay, and they don't appeal that one. So they were like, "I'm sorry, but until you can pass this class somewhere else, maybe, then you can't continue on here. And if you pass it, you could come back." And I was just so ashamed and upset with myself and sick to my stomach and just so over it that I didn't even tell my family why I was coming home. Like the whole summer, I was living with a friend of mine, and we were struggling hella bad. We were really struggling. We were broke. If we had $10, we'd split it with each other. We'd split $4 or $5 and make a meal happen and use a water cup to eat and walk everywhere. Didn't have money to get on the bus. Didn't have money really sometimes even to eat. It just was like that when I was living in Georgia. And a lot of the time I've been in California too. It's been days when I wouldn't eat or couldn't eat. So that was definitely my biggest struggle. Going home, telling them that I just, didn't like the school. I said it needed to be renovated, which was true, but that's not the reason why I left. I would have stayed. I would have stayed if I could have. I would have finished if I could have. So I had to come back and start my whole life over and go from being, potentially a psychologist to just working regular part-time jobs and trying to support myself because I couldn't live with my parents or anyone. It was just me. And it was definitely the hardest thing I had to do was to start my life over after failing college, basically. Being kicked out, being asked to leave after putting so much money and time into a school. It was hard. That was definitely the hardest thing I had to get over, and to this day, a lot of people don't even know about it. So, that was definitely the hardest thing for me to deal with in my life, was reconstructing everything and discovering a whole new Lacey, and just really having to remap my whole life and figure out what I was gonna do. Um, how did I get through it? God. That's it. Without God, I would be nowhere. I've struggled a lot, and I've been through a lot of things and lived on my own and barely survived and barely kept a phone bill on, so that way I could at least keep in contact with people even when I was struggling a lot. Um, a lot of people didn't know about my struggle because I don't like voicing it to everyone. It's just not, I don't want pity. I don't expect pity or anything like that. Um, but without faith and without God, I would not be here, that's for sure. And that's how I got through that. And that's how anyone could get through anything, I promise you. That whatever you believe in, that's who you need to be talking to when you go through things like that. That's for sure. Um, what motivated me to keep going was that I knew that I could make it better, and I knew that I can progress. And the outcome of that was realizing that I wasn't going to be a psychologist. That wasn't me. To be in school for 10 years and be all in the books and stuff. I'm an artistic, social butterfly, and I like to be around people. And I realized modeling was my passion through this whole thing, and that I need to be doing other things just with my hands, really, but not really school. Like, it's hard to explain, but that was the outcome of going through the difficultness, was reevaluating myself and figuring out what I really love to do, not what everyone else thinks sounds good. Being a psychologist looks good on paper, but what is Lacey really good at? That's what we have to do. We have to sit here and say, what am I really good at? What do I love? What do I want to wake up and do every single day? What am I struggling with currently? Financial things. Still trying to get on track and get my financial aid standing back good so I can go back to school, because the only thing I'm going to go back to school for is massage therapy. Because I can be my own person, make my own schedule, deal with me, myself, and I, and my money and my tips and my personality, and that's going to be the most amazing feeling ever. So that struggle is definitely not going to be long.